I've used tea tree oil on zits.
Zits are still there.
It's true. Yeah. Look, zits are a real problem.
Such an 80s word. That's great.
Zits. This is gonna be a funny episode, kids. This is Generation Health. Every week we bring you the latest in cutting-edge research and news and time-tested best practices on how to live a longer, better life. To my right, Dante DiMatteo, registered pharmacist, certified strength and conditioning specialist. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Tyler. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
And across from me, to your right, is Joey DiMatteo, registered pharmacist, board-certified clinical nutritionist. Hello, sir.
Hello, Tyler.
I'm Tyler Andrews. I'm your host. And today we are going to talk about some fun stuff. Dad jokes. Really excited about this one. A little bit about caffeine, some other questions. Actually, it's a lot of listener questions today. But first, the thing we all need to know, who's the funniest person alive?
Oh,
it's a good one.
We were just laughing about some comedians.
Yeah. I would go still old school.
Yep.
Like literally alive, maybe not who's the funniest, like active right now. I would just say literally alive Bill Murray. I still would have to put number one.
Interesting.
I just think that like overall the way he is in movies is probably go number one. And then who's like still active now and maybe like a little bit of a different spin, not movies, but more stand up.
Yeah.
I would have to go Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess I split the question up a little bit. I kind of thought like literally who's alive and more movies than I kind of thought about a stand up. And I would go Chappelle.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Dante?
Chappelle probably I think is the funniest. But right now we were just laughing about Theo Vaughn. And so I would have to say Theo Vaughn, Dave Chappelle.
But to be clear, these are not family-friendly comedians, so don't go from this and put that on if your grandson's in the car, okay? Just to be clear.
I mean, maybe there are like family-friendly comedians, but I'm not aware of it.
Right.
It's tough.
Well, and that's not the question. I just said who's the funniest man alive or woman alive.
I was going to name one, but I don't think his name would be appropriate right now. Of a family-friendly one.
Fair enough.
But,
okay. I honestly, I think John Cleese is probably the person who makes me laugh harder than anybody else. To this day, I'll catch him in some random situation. He'll be on some interview or something, and he just gets me every time. His dry wit is really sharp, and I love it. And you can't touch Monty Python. It's the best. It's the best.
It's good. Bill Murray, though, he's had those smaller roles in the last like 10 or 15 years, and I still think he's just as funny. Like when he's a little more understated and it's in like those Wes Anderson movies. I don't know. I still just, no matter what, he's just making me laugh no matter what he's saying. I don't know.
So so you just find his personality?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's like a sleeper answer.
That is. I did not expect that one. Chappelle is up there.
Two different sides. Yeah. To go Chappelle and Bill Murray, but yeah.
Man. Bridget Fetisi is very, very funny. She makes me laugh on the regular too. But anyway, we can go down that rabbit hole all day long.
Yeah, that is fun.
Facebook question in from Emil asked, I've had a long-term dandruff problem. Over-the-counter shampoos haven't helped. My dermatologist prescribed clobetasol propionate 0.05% and ketoconazole 2%. Using them for a few days eliminates my dandruff, but only for it to return a week or two later. If liquid drips down my head, it leaves red streaks that always get noticed. Is there anything I can do to fix this issue, or am I stuck using this stuff forever? Haven't had a dandruff question before.
Yeah, I think it's still a good question. Something people do deal with.
Yeah.
You know. So I guess I'll just take it in parts. I'm assuming that because he's saying the liquid runs down my head, ketoconazole really only comes in like a cream or in a shampoo.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's the clobetasol. It can make skin red just because it's a strong steroid. Again, it seems like, I don't know, a little intense to think that like a streak is going down and it's like reddening everything it touches, but I mean, it's certainly possible.
So you said it's a steroid. What does it do?
So steroid essentially is just calming down any inflammation to the area. And when you're using it topically, there's usually some kind of rash or some kind of skin irritation, that kind of thing. So in terms of these two, the functionality of the ketoconazole because dandruff has been found to technically be like a type of fungus.
Okay.
And ketoconazole is an antifungal. It's definitely the one, mainly doing the heavy lifting in terms of it working. I'm assuming he's using the clobetasol in case maybe there's a little bit of just like some, just some dry skin in the area, and maybe some dry flakes that are causing it. So he's just trying to calm down any inflammation in the area. Over time, it can thin skin a little bit. The skin on the scalp is very thin, so I don't think it's something you'd notice. But if you're applying, heavy steroids long term to areas of, maybe your arm or things like that, potentially can be of issue. But the clobetasol, if that's something you're going to continue to do, and it does help. It comes in a foam or a spray that can be a lot more targeted to the scalp and not have the running down. So that's just a pharmacy functional thing, is the form.
Okay. And is that something that he would have to talk to his dermatologist about?
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, if they're already prescribing you a solution, that's not like, it's some big ask to switch to the foam.
Okay.
You say what's going on, Cool. And so, I think that's technically it does need cleared up, but it's a very simple, I think, solution to the red streaking anyway. And then the other kind of phrasing is on go. We'll have to use this stuff forever. I would say that you would have that because it keeps recurring and it's recurring so consistently, that maybe not the steroid and maybe not exactly ketoconazole 2%, but you're probably going to have to do something on a maintenance level all the time.
You said it's an antifungal?
Technically is, yes. Yeah. If it's true dandruff and not like dry scalp flakes, dandruff's going to be a little bigger flakes, and it's also can potentially be a little oily or yellow. That's what's odd, is that typically oily skin is associated with true dandruff. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, dry skin, gives you like pseudo dandruff, like that dry flakiness.
Okay.
And it's hard to know which one's which. A dermatologist obviously is going to be very adept at that. But it's hard to obviously do that over, an email. So if we're assuming it's true dandruff, the ketoconazole is still going to be the main thing there. And when you get into some of the over-the-counters, that's some of the things that could potentially, maybe help with both.
Okay.
So ketoconazole comes in 2% prescription. It's 1% over the counter. So if that was something you didn't want to keep up an appointment every 6 or 12 months with your dermatologist and you're having trouble, you can get the over the counter. And I think to use that once or twice a week ongoing is a good idea. And to make just a couple little pointers in terms of its use, both chronic and, the ongoing after the acute phase, is to make sure you leave it in for like 2 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
2 or 3 to 5 minutes to make sure, give it the best chance to work no matter what you're doing. So we'll go into a couple other things here.
So that needs time to do its thing.
Yes. Because essentially, you're still, to a large extent, you're putting it on, and then when you're rinsing your hair off, very little is going to stay behind. So if you don't leave it in for a few minutes and allow it to act, kind of, get into the skin for a few minutes, you're most likely just kind of washing it away with not giving it a chance to work. So that'll go for a lot, because I went into some of the over-the-counters. There's a broad statement here: over-the-counter shampoos haven't helped. And the only thing that I would say, and it goes for a lot of things, like as a pharmacist, we see so much like, I swear Advil cold and sinus is like amazing. I swear it worked for me. Well, to me, I don't care about that name. I just look at what the ingredients are on the back. Right. And half the time it's like, no, there's way better ingredients than this. It's just the brand name and maybe a little bit of Tylenol in there or whatever is just kind of making you feel a little better. But in terms of what you're actually dealing with or whatever, it's not about the name of the product. It's about the ingredients. So my point is, you're going to see a ton of like, I tried Heads and Shoulders. I tried the Selsun Blue. But what it's really about is what's the ingredient. Heads and Shoulders can be, different things. It can be, can have some ketoconazole, can have zinc pyrithione. The zinc pyrithione is a little milder, and the zinc pyrithione can be used for some of the dryness as well. So that's a good one. So again, what my theme is going to be here is to look at the active ingredients, not the brand names. Okay, turn it around, and then to use these ongoing. And the other thing is, don't when I say use them ongoing, I'm talking once or twice a week. Because if you have, whether it is true dandruff or definitely the dry scalp and hair, washing your hair too often is gonna exacerbate that. So you still want to be at like 3 or 4 times a week, and maybe 2 out of those times using a product ongoing, and see what works for you. So there's selenium sulfide. That's mainly what's in Selsun Blue, or they have some other ones too. So that's probably the most effective over-the-counter shampoo in a broad way, but still people are going to respond to different things. We're still dealing with that potential for dry overlap. Then there's coal tar, Neutrogena T-gels. That's where you're going to see that is, again, looking at the coal tar. So for occasional use, I think that's okay. It has been shown to be carcinogenic. It is, I believe, banned in Europe. So,
really?
Yeah, but again, you're applying this. The reason with coal tar, it's sourced from.
Is it literally what it sounds like?
Yes, it's a byproduct of coal production. So, what happens though is it was used more often, or even in the compounding lab, for like psoriasis. For people not getting, relief maybe from their general steroids or whatever they were using.
Okay.
So it was going on large quantities of the elbow in higher strengths and very often in large areas where there could be some systemic absorption. Applying it to your scalp via a shampoo twice a week, lower strength scalp, they're not really going to absorb into the bloodstream from the scalp. I would say is very likely to be safe.
Okay.
But it's still something just to be aware of. But again, I would, recommend trying these different over the counters, because you're not liking having to do the, he's not liking to have to do that, the steroid and the ketoconazole all the time.
Yeah.
So the other thing I found, from like more of a natural side, tea tree oil. And you can get it in shampoo form, so it's a little lower strength. You want to use like pure tea tree. Yeah. And then apple cider vinegar, 1 part apple cider vinegar, 1 part water, and you kind of just spray that in your hair. The vinegar, I'm assuming the acidity is what can, damage the actual dandruff, it being an organism. So that was another one, that I found. So I think, again, the theme is look for the ketoconazole over the counter 1%. See if doing that once or twice a week helps. Selenium sulfide, Selsun Blue, look at doing that, same amount of times a week. And then if it's still not working, do something maybe a little more alternative in the sense of the coal tar salicylic acid. You can look at those. There's even a product called Cosalic that combines the two, which I think could be a good option. Zinc pyrithione is going to be a good one if maybe you are leaning towards it's possible that it's from the dryness. And that one's, pretty mild as well. That one you could even do like more like 3 or 4 times a week because it is very mild. And then look at, some of the apple cider vinegars. That's a good one to do at night. Yeah. If you do it during the day, you potentially can smell like vinegar a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Tea tree oil is a pretty strong scent too. So that could be, a night one. So coconut oil too. If you're a little more concerned about the drying. So
I've used tea tree oil on zits. Mm-hmm. It works phenomenally.
Yeah, it's still zits are still there.
It's true. Yeah. Look, zits are a real problem.
Such an 80s word. That's great.
What would you call it now? Acne?
Pimples?
Okay.
Zits.
This is gonna be a funny episode, kids. Brace yourselves.
So I
hopped back in for the zit.
I'm really glad you did.
So I know there's a lot of different directions there, but again, I just think that
it's a bunch of good options.
Once you get over the acute phase, there should be no reason why literally it's coming back in a week or 2. That's pretty intense. So that means these are topicals. You've got to stay medicated. You've got to try different options. Don't just say, I tried a dandruff over-the-counter shampoo. Dig deep. What's the ingredients? What works for you over time? Be aware of the drying issue. That maybe what's come back is the drying because you shampooed with this medication for 5 days a week.
Okay. All right. There you go, Emil. Okay, this one's an email from Dana. She said, I love coffee. I drink at least 2 cups in the morning and generally another in the early afternoon. And sometimes, are you smirking? Stop it.
That's my wife, God. Dana. It could definitely be her that wrote the question.
Yeah. She didn't email me, so I know her email address. Okay, so Dana said, I love coffee. I drink at least 2 cups in the morning and generally another in the early afternoon and sometimes another in the evening. My husband is worried that I'm overdoing it, especially since I'm pregnant, but I've been doing this since college. Do I need to wean myself off? If I'm sleeping okay, is there a downside to my 3 or 4 cups per day? So is your wife pregnant?
No.
Okay, then that's not her.
3 is enough.
That's a good question. I like coffee a lot too, so I'm really hoping for a good answer here. What you got?
Yeah, so the thing that jumps out, I would say, firstly, would be the pregnancy concern, because there's really not a whole lot of extensive, confident research done in, higher consumption of caffeine in pregnant women and, throughout different moments in time of the pregnancy. The stock recommendation is to try not to exceed 200 milligrams per day.
How much caffeine is in a standard cup of coffee?
So depending on, it just depends on how it's brewed.
Yep.
So like for brewed coffee, you're looking at anywhere from like 80 to 200 milligrams. And
wow. So it could get as high as 200.
Yeah. So I would say like maybe 100 to 150, something along those lines, like instant coffee, like a Keurig type coffee could have a little bit less. Obviously there's still like trace amounts in decaf coffee.
Right.
But the point is, it's at least easier if you're drinking a can of coffee or like an energy drink or something.
One of those pre-made ones.
Yeah, you're able to see exactly what you're getting, and limiting that in pregnancy, I think, is the first safety concern, I guess, just because we don't know necessarily what's going to kind of happen. I mean, there are risks of, preterm births and low birth weights, those sorts of issues that are obviously complicated in their own right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just be drinking too much caffeine, potentially contributing to something like this.
Fair enough.
So from there, we can, break down caffeine a little bit in, coffee and sort of the different places it comes from. So caffeine is a CNS stimulant, and it works, they think, just because the mechanism isn't perfectly well understood as is the,
That's
the caveat
amazing.
for many,
like
many of those substances.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just as an aside, it is incredible that in today's modern society where we can send people to the moon and send electric cars to Mars, we don't fully understand how caffeine works. And not just caffeine, but literally 1,000 other substances and medications and all that stuff that we think we know. We're pretty sure we know. We're not completely certain that we know.
Like that's it.
That's
they
amazing.
are pretty sure about a lot of these, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And so mechanistically, a lot of this may not mean a whole lot to anybody, but it blocks the binding of adenosine to its A1 receptor, which then enhances the release of acetylcholine. It increases the cyclic AMP through inhibition of the phosphodiesterase enzymes.
Sure.
Increases cyclic GMP, increases norepinephrine relief increases norepinephrine release from the central nervous system, which is our fight or flight hormone.
Yep.
And also increases calcium release in the muscle.
Okay.
So that's skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, heart muscle, which can increase the contraction force and also the ability for those muscles to contract more frequently, potentially. So,
is that why I've seen performance athletes talking about caffeine as a performance enhancing drug?
Definitely. Yeah, it plays a huge role in performance. But yeah, all of that is to say that it plays a role in, helping us stay awake.
Yeah.
Promotes wakefulness, alertness. It can increase like recall times of certain, like cognitive tests and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you. I was just going to ask for the non-pharmacist version of what does caffeine do? That's it. Okay.
Exactly. And most people understand what's happening. There's something like 85% of people consume caffeine or coffee, or at least like 100 to 150 milligrams per day.
Yeah.
So it's like the most widely used, performance enhancer.
Yeah.
I would say, which makes it sound bad. But calling it what it is, it definitely has that role as a performance enhancer, both cognitively and physically.
That makes sense.
So this might come as a surprise. So looking at some of like the safety information and the, safe quantities per day, not pertaining to, pregnancy.
Okay. So pregnancy aside, you should keep it to under 1 or 2 cups if you can a day.
Yeah. So the FDA has established that upwards of 400 milligrams per day, which is about 4 to 5 cups of coffee per day, is generally safe.
Okay.
So that is a decent amount for some people, especially if you're, maybe a slow metabolizer of caffeine, or you just don't really drink that much caffeine, that sounds high. And many people may not need that or desire that much anyway. The lethal dose of caffeine is like, 50 times that or something crazy. And they've shown that upwards of a 57 milligram per kilogram dose has been fatal in some case reports.
Wow.
And so 57 milligram, the fatal aspect of this is not funny, obviously, but the amount that this corresponds to is pretty crazy.
Well, no, yeah, it's not funny that somebody would die, but the amount of coffee that you would have to drink to die from caffeine overdose is so absurd that it kind of is funny.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
not funny. It's not funny.
57 milligrams.
But it's kind of funny.
Kind of funny.
57 milligrams per kilogram would, for me, 195 pounds or so, would be 50 plus cups in one day.
Okay, that's funny.
There are some days that, I feel like I could use 50 cups, like podcast days.
Yeah.
But rarely. The point of even saying any of that is some people might be sensitive to caffeine, have a low tolerance to caffeine, but realistically, you have to drink a whole lot of caffeine or coffee to really have some sort of dangerous effect. So you kind of remember that if you maybe had a little too much or you drank a cup that you forgot about.
Right.
That's another one later. Yeah. So it's,
when you feel like you're going to die, it's okay. You're not going to die. Your heart might be racing, but take a breather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about some of those benefits, again, enhancements in alertness and focus, physical performance. It can, I guess, help with weight loss sort of indirectly as it can curb appetite potentially for some people. The other key points that I just wanted to broadly highlight.
Yeah.
You think of caffeine, you think about somebody who drinks a lot of coffee, you assume, well, their heart rate must be crazy. They must have high blood pressure. They must have all these cardiac issues potentially. Well, caffeine intake, especially in those that are fairly caffeine tolerant, there's not really a marked increase in heart rate. It can increase the force of each contraction, but it's not driving up heart rate. It's not driving up blood pressure, especially if you have some sort of baseline tolerance. Now, if you never drink caffeine and all of a sudden you jump to 400 milligrams, I mean, who's to say what that could cause?
Yeah, you might notice that.
Yeah, but again, it's like you just assume because of the nature of it, the CNS stimulant nature of it, that your blood pressure is going to automatically increase, your heart rate's going to be through the roof, when really it might be more of a mental sensation,
a psychosomatic kind of thing. All right.
From there, I think to go back to Dana's question.
Yeah,
we hammered down on the
3 or 4 cups.
Yeah, we touched on the pregnancy portion. The other portion that jumps out, and this is really where we see issues with coffee and caffeine, is the evening consumption, or the consumption that occurs later in the day. I'm hard pressed to see really hardly any downsides with moderate caffeine intake, as again, they're not associated with major cardiac events. They're not associated with major cardiac issues like, or these cardiac changes that might be of concern, like we mentioned. They've even seen that there's even an association that moderate consumption can be protective. And so, and then that brings in the whole argument of, is it the caffeine from coffee that's pretends more of these protective benefits, or is it the caffeine from a nasal spray? Is it the caffeine from an energy drink? It seems as though, if I were to hedge my bet, that probably the caffeine that you're getting from brewed coffee is probably going to be a little better.
Sure.
And even from a performance standpoint, it might work a little quicker, it might work a little better versus, a low calorie or 0 calorie energy drink.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I don't understand why that is. Maybe because there's a whole host of other things that are added to the energy drinks, taurine, the 50 ingredients that are in there that are supposed to also help with energy. But I'm not super, super concerned with caffeine intake in general, again, unless this is masking something during the day, excessive sleepiness, excessive tiredness. I don't have a problem with it unless it's preventing you from going to sleep
Right.
or you're, too wired at night. Those are the biggest concerns, because as we begin to miss sleep, we know that comes with its own list of problems.
Yeah. You can have a lot of issues from that.
And so if you're consuming a little bit of caffeine or coffee moderately on a day-to-day basis, and you're shutting it down from anywhere from 6 to 8 hours before bedtime, and you notice that that's enough time that allows you to fall asleep normally, then it's not really a huge concern. There are some people that can drink their last cup of coffee at 4 and 5 p.m. and they don't have a problem going to sleep. That could just be reflective of the, differences in physiology and how we metabolize caffeine.
Yep.
So again, that 6 to 8 hour window is just a stock recommendation. You might notice that if you don't stop drinking it until 9 hours out, that you're still wired. So that's just a general guideline to maybe watch.
Fair enough.
So I don't know if you want to recenter me there.
Yeah, no. Bit. So as far as that question is concerned, Dana might want to cut back because of the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Should cut back because of the pregnancy. But as soon as that's over, knock yourself out. Your husband's wrong. That's
as long as you're able to sleep, you're getting quality sleep, as long as it's not affecting any of that.
Right.
Like she said, I'm sleeping okay.
Yeah.
Probably fine.
I love my morning coffee. It's just a great ritual. It's that wake up time. I don't drink the coffee to wake up. It just is the ritual and routine thing that I can do without thinking that I like.
Sure. I think, maybe this last point that I'll add might resonate more with, people in my demographic potentially, or those that are still serious about exercise, not age, I guess.
I was gonna say, what are we saying here, Dante?
No.
I'm not that much older than you.
I don't know, the CrossFit,
go ahead.
Powerlifting, that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Old people, not the old head sitting to my left and right.
Yeah.
I feel like we're part of the era of the pre-workout supplements.
Oh yeah.
Where that's probably been around forever, but it feels like it hit while we were in junior high and high school. How hyped up can you get before workouts?
Yeah.
What's the best way to get the blood pumping and get the most out of this workout? I need all this caffeine every single day.
Right.
This is pretty stolen from the barbell medicine guys, really, because I've applied this to my own life. Not every single workout, let's say, is your most important workout.
Yep.
And so if you're to the point where you feel like you need to be taking caffeine every workout to get something out of it, that's maybe not that you have to stop drinking caffeine.
Right.
But that's maybe just a point of reflection to say, hey, let's try to reserve this for, the workouts throughout the week that maybe the intensity is a little higher, the weight's a little higher, you might need a little extra juice, or you reserve it for the day that, by the time Wednesday and Thursday rolls around, you've had a hard week and you need a little boost, reserve it for those days versus like, I need to be on 10 every single time I walk through that door. And if it's not a 10, then it was a waste and I failed and I need to go back to the drawing board, and it's this catastrophic effect because my mile time is slower and my weight's slower on the bar and all these kind of things. Like, not every workout is the end of the world. Play around with the different caffeine dosing.
Yeah.
Maybe push the dosing scale up a little bit if it is a more important workout, but don't be afraid to scale it back if it's just your everyday sort of thing.
But I think what you're saying works for non-performance athletes too, for people that, I have to have my morning cup of coffee or I just can't be alert. I can't be awake. I can't be focused. What you're saying is that the effect of that coffee is not so significant, should not be so significant that you should be dependent upon it. And that if you find you are dependent upon it, that probably has something more to do with something else going on in your life. And you should probably consider that. And try and figure out what the actual issue is.
Definitely. I mean, and it's just like we all have the tendency to put undue pressure on ourselves. And I don't know if it's a lifting day that means a lot to you, or you have a competition coming up, or you're just ready to test something you've been working on. Maybe, use the performance end of the spectrum in caffeine dosing. But don't put undue pressure on yourself. Don't push yourself unnecessarily. And if you're noticing that there's this increased need for it, like you said, there could be something underlying. sleep apnea,
Yeah.
something to look at, not falling asleep at, when you intend to. There's a whole list of things that you might want to look at.
All right. Very cool. Jason emailed us, I should point this out, at questions@askjoedimatteo.com. Questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That is how you can get your question on the show. Jason emailed and said, I recently started working out. Protein powders seem to, well, here we go, back into this. Protein powders seem to range from expensive to super expensive. Why should I favor one over the other? The amounts of protein in each seem to be about the same.
Yeah, protein supplementation is I would say not essential for everybody, just kind of right off the rip there. But if you are somebody who wants to use it to replace a meal, or you struggle with hitting maybe your protein target throughout the day, I think having whey protein or some sort of protein is a great tool, something great to have in the pantry, something to draw, something to have just kind of on hand at all times, not necessarily needing to use it every single day. It is also the type of supplement, just to, further expand upon the question here.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They range wildly in pricing. They range wildly in the form, flavor.
Yeah.
They added these things and they put a bunch of this specific amino acid from it. And this one doesn't have any amino acids listed. It can be a little bit daunting.
Amino acids. Am I right in thinking that amino acids are the effectively types of protein? Is that right?
Yeah. So your amino acids are what make up the broad protein.
Okay.
So when you ingest a protein source, your body assimilates the nutrients into its, kind of constituent amino acid parts.
Okay.
And so segueing into the amino acids, you will always want to look on the label to make sure that it lists the amino acid profile, because there are instances where there sometimes is amino acid spiking, where they just like put a ton of glutamine or a ton of this amino acid in there to beef up the quantity, when really there's not a super compelling argument for use.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what you're looking for is mainly the leucine component.
Okay.
So leucine is the main driver of muscle protein synthesis, which in some of our other videos, if people are interested, they can watch that one. There's a Thorn whey protein video, which goes in a little bit more detail, and I want to say that it's still fairly current, and it would still be relevant. So, anyways, leucine is key. You want to have anywhere from like 2 to 3 grams in the product. That's enough essentially to drive muscle protein synthesis. Why do you want to drive muscle protein synthesis? Well, whether you're a bodybuilder or not, putting on muscle mass, maintaining muscle mass is critical. And making sure that each meal contains enough protein and also enough of the leucine within that protein is to ensure that you have, a marked muscle protein synthesis event, enough times throughout the day, basically.
Yeah.
So again, to back up, we can talk a little bit about the specific source of the whey protein.
Yeah.
But again, on the label, does it have an amino acid profile? Number one, does it have enough leucine? And third part of it again would just be what kind of whey is it? There's 3 or 4 types out there.
I didn't realize there were different types of whey.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they're all very bioavailable.
Okay.
And that's whey isolate, whey concentrate, and then there's a hydrolyzed whey. And so concentrate, I would say if you're somebody that is a little more sensitive to dairy, there's a chance that the whey concentrate might irritate your stomach a little bit, but it may not. So in that case, you would want to try something like an isolate form.
Okay.
And that is essentially just has the protein, the whey portion sort of distilled down to its like final form.
Right. Because the whey is, what you're saying is it's all dairy sourced. Mm-hmm. I assume, is it using milk or something like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it's actually, the whey is actually technically a dairy food product. It's derived from the cheese making process.
Okay.
So
curds and whey.
Yes.
I knew that.
Exactly. And so some of that's in the video too, which I need to brush up on myself.
Okay. But so you're saying they're all, if it's a whey protein, it is sourced from milk, thus the whey, and the concentrate is the one that people tend, if they have issues with dairy, they're probably going to have more issues with the concentrate.
Potentially.
Is the concentrate cheaper? Is that
I would say not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. Whey protein shouldn't be that expensive.
Right.
I mean, like $40, $50, $60 at this point. I know that's a wide spread. I mean, any more than that, I question why.
Yeah.
Because again, with a whey protein supplement, what you want from it is the protein.
That is the name of the supplement.
Yeah. If you want to replace a meal, you're going to have to add some food components anyway. And so if it has some extra carbs or it has extra fat in it, I'm not sure that's worth the extra money or the actual,
So an isolate is then the version of that they've really stripped it down to just the amino acids?
So technically it's essentially just one step further in the filtration process.
Okay.
So it removes everything that isn't protein, and that includes the lactose component. And so there's still like a little bit of that lactose component left in a concentrate. So it's a little bit cleaner. Again, some people who have some lactose sensitivity, they still might be fine with a concentrate. I don't want to make a problem of something that may not be.
Yeah.
But I think in general, you might see a little better, tolerance if, in a hydrolyzed form or an isolate form. Because the hydrolyzed form, I believe, is even one step further from the isolate.
Okay. Is there any downside to using a non-whey protein?
There's egg protein, there's meat, there's like meat, beef protein sources out there, which are all, I would say, fine. But if you're deciding between any of those, the same principle applies. Just make sure you're looking at the amino acid breakdown. Okay. There are some plant sources of protein out there, like protein powders.
Yeah.
They may not have a ton of amino acids for whatever reason.
Because they're not breaking down muscle.
Yeah.
No?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Let me think about that. There's really no excuse for like a plant protein powder to not have enough leucine. Like it's pretty easy to conjure up, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
From a manufacturing perspective, that you're still looking for that 2 to 3 grams. So whether you decide that, I tried the concentrate, I was intolerant, I tried the isolate, I hated it.
Yeah.
Well, you could still use a plant. You can still use a plant form and get the same benefit, really. Or if you want to try an egg protein, that's fine too, I guess. Just make sure it has the requisite leucine.
Got it.
And I know that's pretty specific.
Yeah, we're getting niche here.
We're pretty specific, but
that is a niche question.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say those are sort of the glaring points with a protein product. Not everybody needs one. It's certainly a good idea to have it on hand.
Yeah.
It's a high quality, highly absorbable form of protein and should be relatively affordable, given it's something you're probably not going to have to use every day, especially if you're eating enough otherwise.
Fair enough.
In your diet.
Fair enough.
And check out the Thorn video, because the past version of myself probably explains some of that a little better. So.
Very cool. All right. Rosemary emailed. We're getting through all the listener questions before we get on to the one that I'm really excited about. Rosemary emailed and she said, "How can I protect my eyesight as I age? Are there diets or vitamins that are better for that? I'd like to delay having cataract surgery as long as possible. Thanks, Rosemary."
Yeah, it's a good question. I can kind of break it into a couple different parts. From a standpoint of delaying cataract surgery, that is something that I don't know that there are, and there are no evidence that there's any vitamins or diets or supplements that's going to delay cataract surgery.
Okay.
That's a very physical, external, essentially thickening of the lens that just occurs. And in fact, if it goes untreated too long, you could have some, very dense cataracts that then make it, harder for the eye surgeon to remove, potentially increasing any risk of complications.
So if that's the issue, don't put it off.
Exactly. And that's what it sounds like she's jumping to. How do I protect my eyesight because I want to delay having cataract surgery. That's kind of the way. I know there's multiple questions in here,
right.
But I'm reading it as if she's saying that.
Well, I mean, that's the last thing she said. So presumably that's the punchline. That's what she really wants to know.
That's kind of the way I'm reading it too. So the answer to that is no. But as we age, macular degeneration is something that you can help to prolong with supplements. So it's typically it's an age. It's called AMD. It's the abbreviation. Age-related macular degeneration just occurs that it helps blur your central vision because the macula of the eye that controls sharp or straight ahead vision. There's just damage to it over time. Okay. So as that's beginning to occur, that's a little more of an internal, longer term process. I don't have hard data for you in terms of how long, et cetera, but there are some things you can do generally to help your vision and to potentially help, stave that off, slow that process down.
Sure.
So number one is going to be, we carry what we've done more and more. My dad started is to have combination products.
Yep.
That not hang our hat on something like this, that there's one magic ingredient, or have you walk out with 5 supplements that that work with good companies that put, well-researched ingredients in together so that you could maybe you have to take a second or third or sometimes even fourth pill because there's so much in there, but that you're overall taking a product that can help with multiple ingredients.
Sure.
So ours, Vision Support Plus, contains lipoic acid. It's a very good antioxidant, which essentially kind of can work with vitamin E and C and recharge, as well as glutathione, recharge your, antioxidant capacity in that way, which is going to help with macular degeneration. Ginkgo promotes blood flow. It's also another good antioxidant. The eye tissue has high affinity for ginkgo. Some studies have shown that. So that's another good, product to have in there. Then what you'll always hear about is the carotenoids or the vitamin A family.
Okay.
Lutein, zeaxanthin, they're in high concentrations actually in the macula, lutea portion of the eye that's affected. So we know that they're in high concentrations there. The vitamin A family are all strong antioxidants. So that's, again, getting the picture here of, the mechanism behind how it works.
And when you say carotenoids, are they related to carrots? Is that
vitamin
why
A?
they're called that?
Yes, and they have that orangish color. It's partially what gives carrots its color. Yeah, the carotenoids are vitamin A. The specific ones, lutein, lycopene, zeaxanthin, again found in the that macula lutea portion of the eye. They've actually found that low levels of lycopene, one of 10 carotenoids that are found in the blood, should definitely, be boosted for optimal eye health. They've tested, different levels of it in the blood, and they've corresponded with different levels of macular degeneration.
Okay.
And then lastly, bilberry. That's kind of goes back to, that helps with night vision. That goes back to fighter pilots, like World War II years ago using it. So that's another one. It's, again, very good antioxidant. And again, has been studied and looked at over the years. So that's a combination product, again, that's going to help with macular degeneration. I wish I looked for it, believe me, even things that were saw some things like sterile eye drops that potentially like rearrange the way the protein is in the eye and can at least, the protein that's on the, the cornea for, actual cataracts, or the cataract that's developing.
Right.
That it does. Couldn't really find anything that shows that they actually work. Carnosine eye drops are also out there. Some people are, manufacturers have claimed they help to dissolve cataracts. Again, nothing to stand behind on that that I can
study
see.
To say that's the case.
Yeah. So cataracts, again, in conjunction with your eye doctor, if it's something you want to put off for a little while to make sure that they're not getting too bad and you're getting checked, if that's your prerogative, I don't see a problem with that.
Right.
But if you're like, I'm just not having the surgery and you kind of run away from your eye doctor, that's where it could definitely be a problem. Because again, if the worse it gets, getting to a point where an eye doctor would be uncomfortable with it, that's where, again, you're just making the surgery harder and increases the risk of complications.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Rosemary, good luck. Okay,
Imagine finally getting a little segment here, man.
I'm so excited about this. This is my. I read this and I was like, oh, we should talk about this. And I sent it to you guys, and you weren't as excited about it, but I'm still excited about it. And so I'm doing it. This is what's happening. Okay,
I like it.
It is pretty cool.
It is fun. So the we're talking about dad jokes. Ready for this? The British Psychology Society put out an article that had a whole bunch of research behind it, and I'll read some of the punchlines here. How are we to make sense of the apparent popularity of dad jokes, given that they are explicitly said to be unfunny. Even those definitions of the genre that do not specifically say the word unfunny include similar slights like lame or hackneyed or embarrassingly bad. While virtually all dad jokes are puns, however, it is not all puns that are dad jokes. And at this point, the article goes in and talks about how puns are often used to make very blue off-color jokes. Those are definitely not dad jokes. Dad jokes are the bland, vanilla, hyper inoffensive things that, the comedians we were talking about before, they don't do these sorts of things.
Right.
But their dad jokes are still all around. Dad jokes are, this is back to the article, by contrast, pure, terminally inoffensive puns. This is what makes them wholesome and appropriate for dads to tell around their kids. It's also what makes dad jokes so susceptible to accusations of being stupid, lame, and unfunny. Yet, telling a joke that is so lame or unfunny that it doesn't deserve to be told out loud is itself a violation of the norms of joke telling. And this can, in turn, make the dad joke funny. In this sense, dad jokes can be considered a type of anti-humor, or humor derived from violating the forms and norms of humor production itself. Okay, so this I geeked out on this hardcore. The way that what he's saying is the way that this works is that dad jokes, it starts with the little kid that you're just making jokes that are on a level they can understand, that they're not going to be offensive, that it's an easy sort of thing. But then as the kids get older and they get to be teenagers, I have 3 of them, so I know this for a fact. There is a tipping point where you are no longer funny anymore, Dad, and stop making these same jokes. But Dad doesn't stop making those jokes. And what's really fun is they actually get funnier for Dad. But I'll get into that in a minute. The article talks about, and there's been a bunch of research on this. Yosef Panksepp did a bunch of research with rats showing this. 2-second version. We know about rough and tumble play, which is what it's often called in psychology, with small children, usually dad engaging with child, physically roughhousing, wrestling, that sort of thing. And we know that that play helps the child to learn all sorts of things in a precognitive fashion. They're not thinking through it. You can't reason these ideas out with the kid. They just have to experience it physically. And what it teaches them is things like, just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean I'm in pain. Just because I'm in pain doesn't mean I have to cry. Sometimes a little bit of discomfort is actually a lot of fun. That sort of roughhousing. Where is the most fun when you're roughhousing? It's right on the edge of pain. It's right. Yeah. It's right where you're almost pushing it too far. And as a parent, the things that you can teach the kid, like literally, is like, here's the line. Don't cross the line. And we can get as close as you want to that line. But as soon as you cross that, when you kick dad where you shouldn't kick dad, we're done playing. The fun stops, right? And so kids learn, okay, if I want to keep having fun, I don't cross that line. And there's been all kinds of studies linking that sort of play with, or let me put it the other way, linking the absence of that sort of play with all kinds of negative outcomes in teen years and later in life, including things like tendency toward domestic abuse and drug abuse and like all kinds of not graduating, all these different things. And we believe it's because you would think if dad was rough with the kid, why wouldn't that then lead to the kid being rough with the wife? And the answer is because the kid that dad played with roughly, the kid knows there's a line and you don't cross that line. And anyway, so all that is an aside because that's what's relevant here. This is when the article comes back. So we know the way physical rough play with a child educates them. We think this is what's going on with dad jokes. At first blush, fathers' more aggressive style of physical play and their teasing style of humor with their children might seem cruel, but that would be missing the point. By continually pushing and challenging their children, fathers' style of rough and tumble play supports their child's physical and cognitive development in important ways. While teaching them to regulate their behavior and emotions, ideally fathers' rougher style of joking, where they're making jokes that the child finds offensively bad and embarrassing. That's the whole point, is you make the dad joke in front of the friends, and the friends look at the kid and go, wow, your dad is lame, right? So we're saying teaching them to regulate the behaviors and emotions. Ideally, father's rougher style of joking fulfills a similar function. By teasing teasingly striking at their children's egos and emotions without teetering over into bullying, fathers build their children's resilience and train them to withstand minor attacks and bouts of negative emotion without getting worked up or acting out, teaching them impulse control and emotional regulation. In light of this, it is worth considering dad jokes as a pedagogical tool. I love that word, pedagogical tool that may serve a beneficial function for the very children who roll their eyes at them. By continually telling their children jokes that are so bad that they're embarrassing, fathers may push their children's limits for how much embarrassment they can handle. They show their children that embarrassment isn't fatal, and for a child who is approaching or has entered adolescence, which appears to be a sensitive period for sociocultural processing, this is an immensely valuable lesson. In this sense, dad jokes may have a positive pedagogical effect, toughening up their kids who are begrudgingly exposed to them. There you go. That was a study from the British Psychological Society. I thought that was fantastic. Any big thoughts on this?
You a dad jokes guy then?
Unintentionally,
you literally,
so.
Yeah.
Yes. I have other forms of humor that I like, but my kids will quickly attest to the fact that I have never held back a dad joke, not a single time.
Wow. Because that's what I was wondering was how many people, I mean, I see them, there's like a Instagram account with them or something like that, but I don't really know anybody that tells them
that's because
actually to their kids.
You are the one that tells them.
Yeah. But I'm friends with other dads. I don't know.
Well, but it's not like the list of dad jokes.
Sure,
here's the dad joke.
It's a general sense of humor and
when you
still think you're funny to them.
No, I know I'm not funny to them.
No, I'm saying
that's what he's.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
The dad who thinks he's funny, but
right?
The kid, but that's the point. Part of what's fun about it as an adult, it goes from being I'm entertaining you to now I'm entertaining me
at your expense a little bit.
Exactly, because I'm going to make a joke and watch you get uncomfortable, and then I'm going to think that's funny. It is so much fun.
Yeah, I guess the part that I went to. That I guess because I just felt it does relate more to me is the physical play with kids. That was really cool to see that kind of written up because I'm like that. I have two boys now, 6 and 4, and I'm definitely always wrestling with them. I've had cuts on my face from my younger one in here. He needs to learn to line a little more, but he's still pretty young. But anyway, so that was cool to read and kind of the thought process behind that. And then it's another thing. My wife doesn't love that, but she kind of gets it.
That's pretty normal.
The teasing, that I will tease my kids. She can't understand that. And maybe I should watch it a little more, but I do kind of tease them or you just poke at them or something.
Yeah.
Or, something I know that was bothering them. Or now my older one has started to say he likes a girl or whatever. And I'll tease him about that. So I don't know, just to see that written in an article for me was kind of cool.
It's backed by science. You're allowed to do it. And in fact, you need to do it.
So for you related to the dad jokes part. I kind of related to that part more, but either way in this, I thought it was pretty cool for sure.
And we should point out, like it says, you don't cross over that line into bullying. That's not what we're talking about. And in the same way that roughhousing is not the same as beating your children. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about play. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
But there's definitely that where you push a line with them a little bit.
Yep.
Sometimes I am trying to kind of physically and mentally toughen them up, but obviously to a point,
right? An age appropriate level.
Yeah. But that little bit, or if one kid, now my younger one is a little more scared of heights. So I pull him up in the air, throw him up, he gets scared. So those kind of things. I don't overdo it, but I will do a little one with him just to kind of I don't want to say needle him a little bit, but just to kind of get him to break out of that.
Well, it also helps to associate fun with that challenge.
Yes.
Do you have thoughts?
No, that was good. I was thinking more about the dad jokes again too. It made me think about dad, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I remember him as legitimately never finding him funny. No matter what. I just didn't find him funny.
Yep.
But really it was just that. I have a memory of the teenage years thinking that.
True.
So here I am reading this and it's well, he probably was a little bit funny.
Yep.
It's just that he would say stuff or do something with his shoes or his socks. And it was just because of my age and just all of what was mentioned.
It was because you were learning the lessons that you needed to learn.
Yes. It was at my expense.
It
was I'm
curious. He's shoes and
so,
socks.
cringe right now.
What did he do with his shoes and socks?
I'm trying to
Started
think.
wearing black socks all the time for a little while
Yeah,
there.
he started repping the black socks.
Nice. Like with sneakers?
Cutoffs all the time.
Oh, that's
Black
awful.
socks with sneakers and cutoffs all the time in the gym.
Oh, wow.
That was standard uniform.
Yeah. I guess that's less like the jokes.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to be funny. He was,
But,
he was
yeah.
serious about that.
He worked out better in the cutoff.
Yeah. Yeah, like he coached some of our team, like basketball and baseball teams, like up until like 12 and 13. So
Yeah.
right when this stuff kind of started, like right when you start noticing this.
Yeah.
And like the way that I think he would hype us up would be almost like intentionally funny. And I'd look at my friend Mike and
Yep.
be like, dude, like he's the worst. Like, this is the worst.
He was doing a perfect job then.
Exactly.
That's
That's
funny to look
awesome.
at it that way. Because it makes me look back too. Like sometimes Dad wasn't ever like cracking
He'd
a
be like,
joke really.
"Woo," like that loud.
Yeah, but
like,
he had some silliness to him.
Yeah.
That looking back, I don't know. I've seen more looking back than I remember like in the moment. You
Yeah.
know?
yeah.
That's fantastic. Very cool. Well, you get to go home and tell some dad jokes, learn some.
That's gonna be on my mind now. Actually,
A duck walks into a bar. Does he got any grapes? Do you want to hear the rest of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Duck walks into a bar, says, you got any grapes? And the bartender says, no, we don't have any grapes and we don't serve ducks. Get out of here. Does it again the next day. You got any grapes? No. And I told you yesterday we don't serve ducks. Don't come in here. Third time, duck comes into the bar. You got any grapes? Bartender says, no. And if you come in here one more time, I'm going to nail your bill to this bar. The next day, the duck walks into the bar. He goes, you got any nails? Bartender goes, wait, what? No. You got any grapes? That's it. That's the whole joke. The only
That's
joke I can
great.
ever remember. It's terrible.
that's the one that sticks with you.
That's it. That's a dad level joke that I got.
Amazing.
Some of them they are in examples in the actual like main article.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have some. Yeah.
They're pretty awful.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you want to know any more about those or anything else, all of the products that were mentioned are available on our website, askjoedimatteo.com, askjoedimatteo.com. That is also where you can sign up for our mailing list, be up to date on sales and anything else that's happening with the company. You can find old episodes of this show. You can find past episodes of the show that started all of this with the man, Joe DiMatteo Sr., who was terminally unfunny, according to the two men across from me. If you have a question, we want to hear about it. Email questions@askjoedimatteo.com. And then show notes, anything that we referenced, this article and a bunch of others will be available. They're usually available on the video or on the podcast. You can find them within the links there. If you are listening, then you're missing out on half the fun because especially this one, there was lots of giggling and laughing. You should watch the episodes. They're on YouTube. They're on Rumble. Go check us out on there. Just look up Generation Health. Big thanks to Josiah Schweinberg running the cameras and making us all laugh when we aren't supposed to. Michael Deppish, our editor. Joyce Gibb, the nurse practitioner who does private consultations. Diane Silverman manages our products. Terry does scheduling. Cecilia does distribution. That's Joey DiMatteo. That's Dante DiMatteo. I'm Tyler Andrews. And that's it for us this week. But now the question is for you. When you've heard what you've heard, are you going to take action? See, I've ruined this, and it doesn't matter because dad jokes make it funny. Go tell a dad joke. That's it. Get out of here.
What do sprinters eat before a race? Nothing. They fast.
They fast.